Hello, my friend. Welcome to another true emotional story here on the channel. I'm James Lioncourts, and every week we bring you powerful life stories. Stories about parents and children, betrayal, redemption, and the courage it takes to love, even when it hurts. If you're new here, make yourself at home. This is a place for real people with real struggles and real victories. Today's story is one you'll never forget. It's about a grandfather who gave everything to his family until he discovered that love alone wasn't enough to protect him. What happens when your own son turns against you? What happens when the only person who stands up for you is a 10-year-old girl with more courage than most adults? Stay with me until the end, because this story carries a powerful message of protection, loyalty, and emotional healing. If this kind of story speaks to you, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell. Every time you watch, share, or comment, you help us grow and reach more people who need to hear stories just like this one. Now, take a deep breath and let me tell you what happened. When my son tried to kill me for money, but my granddaughter saved my life and my heart. The sun poured through my kitchen window that afternoon like it had for the past 43 years. Everything looked just the way it always had. My coffee mug sat in its usual place. The kettle murmured softly, and the familiar rhythm of retirement life surrounded me with peace. But inside, I felt a quiet tension building. The kind that doesn't make noise, but sits in your chest like a weight. Then the phone rang. Kevin's name lit up the screen. My son. I hesitated for a second before answering, already bracing myself. "Hey, Dad," he said with that certain tone in his voice, the same one he used as a boy when he wanted something expensive. That tone hadn't changed in 42 years. "Hello, son," I replied calmly. "Everything okay?" There was a pause. Then he cleared his throat. "Well, that's why I'm calling," he began, sounding casual, but not really. "We need $8,000. It's for the cruise tickets. Everything's already booked. Deposits are paid. The travel agent needs the rest by Monday." I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at my mug. $8,000? He said it like it was a trip to the grocery store. "You're 42 years old, Kevin," I finally replied. "You have a family, a job, pay for your own vacation." There was silence. Then the whining started. "We're your family, Dad. This cruise is about celebrating your retirement. It's about memories, quality time. And you're worried about money?" I walked over to the window. Outside, the world carried on. My neighbor trimmed her roses. A couple jogged past with their dog. Everything normal, except the conversation. In my ear, "I'll pay for Megan's ticket," I said. "She's 10. She shouldn't miss this because her parents can't plan." "But Dad," his voice cracked fake desperation I'd heard before. "We're talking about a once-in-a-lifetime trip. When will we all be together like this again?" "Kevin," I said firmly, "I've helped you more times than I can count. The house down payment, your wedding, that car repair last year. When does it end? This is different," he snapped. "This is about family." "No," I interrupted, sharper than I meant. "This is about you living above your means and expecting me to clean it up." I took a breath. "I'll transfer Megan's share to the travel agent. You and Tracy can figure out the rest." He was quiet again for a long time. Then, ice cold, he replied, "Fine. But when Megan asks why her parents couldn't come, don't blame me." The call ended. I stood there, holding the phone, staring at it as if it might explain what had just happened. But it didn't. The golden light still filled my kitchen. The coffee still steamed, yet everything had changed. The man on the other end of the line wasn't the boy I raised. He was someone else now, someone who saw me not as a father, but as a wallet with a beating heart. The knock never came. They didn't ring the bell. They didn't even call ahead. I was sitting at the dinner table when I heard the sound of car doors slamming in my driveway. I stood up and peeked through the curtains. Kevin's dented minivan was parked crooked, engine still ticking. My stomach dropped. They were here, and I knew it wasn't a friendly visit. Kevin still had the spare key I gave him years ago when Megan was born. Back then, trust was easy. Now, it felt like a mistake. The door clicked open. No knock, no permission. Just intrusion. Tracy appeared first. Her makeup was smudged. Her hands trembled in a way that seemed practiced. She looked like someone who wanted me to believe she'd been crying. Kevin followed, big and heavy, filling the doorway like a storm cloud. "Frank, we need to talk," Tracy said, her voice thin. Kevin didn't sit. He paced around my living room like he owned the place, picking up family photos and setting them down carelessly, not even looking at them. "Please, sit down," I said, trying to maintain some dignity in my own home. Tracy sat on the edge of the armchair, clutching her designer purse like it was armor. Kevin stayed on his feet. "Frank," she began, her voice cracking just enough, "this isn't about a vacation. We're drowning." Kevin stopped pacing and stood right in front of me. Close, towering. "We owe $50,000, Tracy continued. "Credit cards, loans, the mortgage. Kevin's job changed commissions last year, and we fell behind." "$50,000? I repeated. The number hit me like a punch. How did you let it get that bad? I didn't need the answer. I'd seen the expensive restaurants, the luxury SUV, the designer bags, the lifestyle built on borrowed time. "We can fix it," Kevin said sharply. "We just need one thing." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a loan application. "We need collateral." "Your signature? And the cruise?" I asked. He shrugged. "It fits into the plan. Megan needs this trip." "We all do. She's been asking questions. Tracy cries all the time. She needs to see everything's okay." Tracy sniffled right on cue. Kevin leaned in closer. His voice dropped. "And if we don't go, maybe Megan should stay home too. Wouldn't be fair for her to enjoy a vacation if we're losing the house, right?" That was the moment it clicked. They weren't here for help. They were here for control, and they were willing to use my granddaughter as a pawn to get what they wanted. "Don't you dare use her like that," I said quietly, but deep down, I knew he already had. I walked to my desk, my hands heavy, my chest tight. Every step felt like surrender. I opened the drawer, pulled out my checkbook, and wrote $8,000 with a hand that shook. "This is the last time," I said, tearing out the check. Kevin snatched it before I finished speaking. "Thanks, Dad. Really, this means everything." But there was no gratitude in his voice. No relief, just the cold satisfaction of getting what he came for. They walked out without saying goodbye, and I stood there in my own living room, holding an empty checkbook. Not just violated, but ashamed of how easily I'd given in. The morning of our departure was cold but clear. Kevin's minivan rolled into my driveway like it always did, slightly late, slightly crooked, and full of tension. But standing on the porch was Megan, holding a worn copy of The Secret Garden, her cheeks flushed with joy. "Grandpa," she beamed, "look what I brought to read on the ship." She held up the book like it was a treasure. I smiled, despite myself. "That's a great choice, sweetheart," I said as I helped her into the car. "I'm sure the ship has a library, too." Kevin didn't speak. He didn't need to. The silence in the car was thick, hostile, suffocating. Tracy adjusted the rearview mirror, catching my eye just long enough to deliver one of her cold, unreadable smiles. Her fingernails tapped the armrest rhythmically. Calculated. Annoying. I stared out the window, watching New York's skyline rise around us. Megan pressed her face to the glass. "The buildings are getting taller," she whispered. "It's like a forest made of glass." That one line, that simple observation, from a 10-year-old, melted something in me. I looked at her again and realized she still saw magic in the world, and I had to protect that. "That's Manhattan, Princess," I told her softly. "See the tall one with the silver top? That's the Chrysler Building. My grandfather saw it being built." "Your grandfather?" She gasped. "That means my great-great-grandfather. Was he alive when dinosaurs were?" I laughed. Not quite, but close. The laughter felt strange on my lips. It had been a long time, Dot, as we approached the port. The tension returned. Kevin's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Tracy looked irritated by the traffic. By the world, really. "Money can buy many things," she said suddenly, her voice sharp beneath its sweetness. "But it can't buy affection. Isn't that right, Frank?" Her eyes were locked on mine in the mirror. She was trying to poison. Something real. But Megan didn't let her. "I love Grandpa no matter what," she said, full of fire. "He's the best grandpa in the whole world. And it's not about money." I didn't say a word. I just reached over and gently squeezed her hand. That small act said everything. They couldn't control her love. And that terrified them. The smell of salt filled the car. We had reached the harbor. The moment we stepped out of the van, Megan gasped. "Grandpa, is that our ship?" The Ocean Majesty towered over the docks, like a floating city. White and gleaming, 15 stories tall. "It's a palace," Megan whispered Dot inside the terminal. The crowd buzzed with excitement. Security lines, luggage carts, people from every walk of life. Dot. Then a crew member in a crisp uniform called out, "Mr. Frank Miller, party of 4? I nodded. "You and your granddaughter will be on Deck 8, Ocean View Suite," he said with a smile. "Mr. Kevin Miller, interior cabin on Deck 5. The distinction was subtle, but it was there. Even the key cards looked different. Mine was edged in gold. Kevin's was plain white. He noticed. Of course, he noticed. When we got to our suite, Megan ran straight to the balcony. "Grandpa, come see." We stepped outside, and she pointed with both hands. "Look, the Statue of Liberty is waving at us." I looked at her little face, glowing. In the sunlight, for a second, I forgot the check, forgot the manipulation, forgot the betrayal. For a second, it was just me and Megan, and the wind and the sea. Dot, and it felt like peace. Dot, real peace. Maybe, just maybe, this trip would still give her the memories she deserved, even if it broke me in the process. The sun was setting in warm shades of coral and gold. I sat alone on the deck chair, mystery novel open in my lap, the ocean rocking the ship gently beneath. Dot, it had been a surprisingly good day. Dot, Megan had made new friends. She swam, laughed, explored every corner of the kids' club. For a few blissful hours, I let myself believe this trip might still be worth it. And I heard footsteps. Dot, fast. Panicked. "Grandpa." Megan's voice cracked as she burst onto the deck. Stood immediately, dropping my book to the floor. Her face was flushed, her eyes wide with fear. "Princess, what's wrong?" She ran straight into my arms. Her little body trembled. "I went back to the cabin to get my book," she whispered quickly, and I heard them talking. "Who?" "Mom and Dad," she said, her voice barely audible. "They didn't know I was there. They were in the bathroom with the door closed, but I heard them." My heart pounded in my chest. "What did you hear, Megan?" She looked up at me, eyes filled with tears. "They're going to do something to your drink tonight. They said it would make you sleepy. Then they'll take you up to the deck and push you over." My blood turned to ice. "No one will see, Grandpa. They said the cameras don't work in that corner, and the security guards change shifts at 9:30. I couldn't breathe. I believed her. There wasn't a doubt in my mind. Kevin and Tracy weren't just using me for money anymore. They were planning to kill me silently, cleanly, at sea, make it look like an accident. Elderly man lost his balance. I knelt down, trying to steady my voice. Megan, you are incredibly brave for telling me this. You did the right thing. What do we do now? She asked, her hands clutching mine. I looked toward the horizon. The ship felt different now. Less like a vacation, more like a trap. You're going to the kids' club for movie night, I said. You'll stay there until I come get you. Don't go back to their cabin. Don't talk to them alone. Understand? She nodded, eyes wide. But what about you, Grandpa? What if they try to give you the drink anyway? I'll be careful, I promised. Let me worry about that. Right now, I need you to be safe. But I don't want to leave you. Sometimes, protecting someone means trusting them to fight the right way, I said gently. I'm not going to let them hurt either of us. I kissed her forehead, and I watched her walk away down the deck, her shoulders small but strong, disappearing into the glowing lights of the ship's activity center. The dinner bells chimed across the decks. Below me, families gathered for evening meals. Somewhere on the ship, my son and his wife were preparing to murder me, but they didn't. Count on a little girl with a heart full of fire, and a grandfather with nothing left to lose. I didn't go to dinner, not that night. I needed time. I needed space. And I needed a plan. Back in my suite, I paced the floor like a man trying to walk off a nightmare. But this wasn't a nightmare. It was real. And it was happening tonight. They were going to kill me. Kevin, my own son, and Tracy, who once toasted me at their wedding, calling me the heart of the family. I opened the drawer beside the bed and pulled out my phone. Hands trembling, I tapped the screen. Voice recorder. Armed. Hidden. Just in case. And I moved to the balcony, where the ocean shimmered in the moonlight, pretending to read while my ears stayed sharp. Waiting. It didn't take long. From above, I watched Kevin and Tracy approach the bar. They smiled. They laughed. They looked normal, but their eyes kept scanning. They were looking for me. My stomach turned, but I stayed still. Kevin ordered 3 drinks. Grey Goose martinis. Extra dry. Just like Dad always orders. Too specific. Too rehearsed. I'd never cared about vodka brands in my life. That was the giveaway. Back in my room, I played it out in my head like a chessboard. They needed me to drink. They needed me to stumble. They needed me gone. I pressed record and walked to their cabin. Quietly, slowly. The walls on this ship were thinner than most. People realized. I positioned myself near their door, heart pounding, and waited. Voices inside, low, frustrated. He suspects something. Tracy snapped. He refused the drink. He never refuses alcohol. Kevin growled. There was a pause. Then the plan shifted. Then we do it during his walk, Tracy said. His usual deck stroll. He always goes alone around 10. Security switches shifts at 9:30. Kevin added. That gives us a 15-minute window. Push him. Quick. No struggle. Just another old man who lost his balance. I pressed the phone tighter to the wall. My knees felt weak. I stepped away slowly, heart thundering. Back in my suite, I replayed the recording again and again. Their voices. Their cold, calculated plan. It didn't sound like desperation. It sounded like business. Like murder was just another transaction. I sat down at the small writing desk and stared at the envelope where I kept my legal papers. College fund for Megan. Will. Insurance. Power of attorney. I opened it all, reviewed every detail. Then I pulled out a notepad and started writing a letter to her. Just in case, if anything happened tonight, Megan would know the truth. She'd know I tried, that I fought. I never stopped protecting her, not even with my last breath. I folded the letter, sealed it, placed it inside the drawer, then. I looked at the mirror and told myself what I needed to believe. You're not just a victim. Not this time. At 10 p.m., I would walk that deck like always, but I wouldn't walk alone. Asterisk the next morning. We reached Bermuda. Sunlight sparkled off the turquoise water. The docks buzzed with tourists eager to explore the island. I stood on the upper deck with my bag hidden behind a life preserver. Inside was the recording. My ID, my documents. If I left the ship now, I could go straight to the police. Let the authorities arrest Kevin and Tracy. At the next port, let them explain why they were planning to kill a man who raised them. I could be safe. I could be done. Then I heard her. Grandpa. Megan ran toward me, dressed in her little yellow sundress, her hair blowing in the breeze, eyes full of excitement. Isn't it beautiful? She said. Look at the water. It's like swimming in liquid jewels. I nodded, unable to speak. Then she looked at me, and her joy shifted. She saw the bag. She saw the look in my eyes, and her own filled with fear. You're leaving, she said quietly. Just for the day, I lied. I need to take care of some boring grown-up things. No, she whispered, shaking her head. Please don't go. Megan, they'll hurt you if I'm not there, she said. And if you leave, who's going to protect me? That stopped me cold, in my panic to survive. I forgot the most important thing. If I left, she would still be trapped with them, alone. Afraid, in danger, my bag suddenly felt like the coward's way out. I knelt down. You're right, sweetheart, I said. I'm not going anywhere. We're in this together. But what if they try again? And we'll stop them, I said gently. Not by running, but by standing up. She didn't answer. She just hugged me tight, like her little arms could shield me from the world. And in a way, they did. Kevin and Tracy appeared a few minutes later. They were dressed for shore excursion, smiles forced, sunglasses hiding their eyes. Not coming ashore, Dad? Kevin asked. Changed my mind, I said. Think I'll enjoy the ship. While it's quiet, they glanced at each other. I saw the gears turning. They were recalculating, adjusting the plan. All right, Tracy said, her voice sickeningly sweet. We'll be back by 4. They walked down the gangway, hand in hand. I watched them from the upper deck, binoculars pressed to my face. I wasn't watching them like a father. I was watching them like a man about to spring a trap, at 11:45. I picked up the phone in my cabin. Ship security, a voice answered. This is Frank Miller in Suite 8A, I said. I need to report a serious safety concern. I'd like to speak with the chief security officer, privately. 20 minutes. Later, I sat across from Officer Michael Smith in a small room behind the bridge. He was in his 30s, sharp-eyed, no nonsense. I placed my phone on the desk and hit play. Kevin's voice filled the room. Push him over. Wet deck. Accident. Insurance. When it ended, Officer Smith looked stunned. You're telling me your own son is planning to kill you? Yes, I said. And I have a 10-year-old granddaughter who overheard everything. He leaned back, processing. Why not just leave the ship? Because if I disappear, she's still trapped with them. And they already know she heard something. He nodded slowly. Then he stood and called the captain. Captain Johnson arrived minutes later, gray-haired, serious, steady. They listened again. Then again, Mr. Miller, the captain said. I've seen many things at sea, but this? He didn't finish the sentence. Instead, he leaned forward. What do you want to do? I told him everything, my plan. My walk, the trap at first. They resisted. It's too risky, Officer Smith said. You'd be bait. I'm old, I said. But I'm not helpless. And I'm not stupid. They finally agreed. We outlined every detail. Where I'd stand, where they'd be hidden, the signal. Backup. Megan would stay safe at the kids' club. And I'd do what no father should ever have to do. Catch his own son trying to kill him. It was 11:25 p.m. I stood in front of the mirror in my suite, buttoning my cardigan with hands that didn't shake. Not anymore. I looked exactly how they needed me to look: old, tired, vulnerable, but inside I was steel. In my pocket, the emergency whistle pressed against my palm like a silent ally. I stepped out into the hallway. The ship was quiet now, just the gentle hum of the engines and the soft creak of metal shifting over dark water. The upper deck was nearly empty. Stars glimmered above me. The Atlantic stretched like black glass all around. I walked slowly to the agreed spot, the edge of the starboard rail. Alone. Or so they thought. Officer Smith was hidden nearby. 2 more guards positioned in the shadows, watching every move. Placed my hands behind my back and stared at the ocean. Then I heard it. Footsteps behind me. Dad? Kevin's voice. Too casual. Too loud. I turned. He and Tracy approached, dressed in dark clothing, their smiles stretched tight. What are you doing out here so late? He asked. Couldn't sleep, I said, keeping my voice calm. Sometimes the sea helps clear my mind. Tracy stepped to my right, cutting off one side of my path. You should be careful, she said. The railings can be slippery at night. Kevin moved closer, especially at your age. Balance isn't what it used to be. They were closing in, their positions perfect. Practiced, rehearsed. They thought I was just a fragile old man on a quiet walk. They had no idea. I stood tall, looked Kevin in the eye. Actually, my balance is fine, I said, just like my hearing. He froze. I heard everything last night. The plan, the poison, the time you chose, because the patrol shifts at 9:30. Tracy's face went pale. What are you talking about? She hissed. Kevin stepped forward, hand reaching for my arm. I stepped back. You plan to murder me, I said. For insurance money. Tracy looked around, panicked. We just came to check on you. No, I interrupted. You came to finish the job. Kevin's hand grabbed my arm, tightening. I lifted the whistle and blew. The sharp sound cut through the night like a blade. Security, I shouted. Help! Shut up! Kevin growled, trying to force me toward the railing. That's when the deck lights flashed on. Officer Smith's voice rang out. Step away from Mr. Miller. Kevin dropped my arm like it burned. Flashlights blazed through the darkness as guards rushed in. Tracy raised her hands. This isn't what it looks like. Officer Smith was calm, but firm. You're both under investigation for conspiracy to commit murder. The handcuffs clicked. Kevin turned to me one last time, his eyes full of hate. This isn't over, Dad, he muttered. Money changes everything. I looked at him, not with anger, not even sadness. Just truth. No, I said. Love does. As they were led away, I stood alone under the stars. Alive. Shaking. And full of something I hadn't felt in days. Victory. 45. Minutes after the arrest, I sat in the ship's security office. The room was small, quiet. Just a desk, 2 chairs, and the sound of paper being shuffled. I was safe, but I didn't feel like I'd won. Through the wall, I could hear Kevin's voice, angry, defensive, full of lies. I could hear Tracy trying to manipulate her way out. Bargaining, blaming me. The officer across from me, Michael Smith, looked up from his report. Mr. Miller, we'll need to contact the authorities in Nassau. Local police will want statements. Once we dock, they'll take it from here. I nodded slowly, but my heart wasn't in it. He paused. Are you okay, sir? I thought about Megan. About her, asleep in her bunk, unaware of what had almost happened, unaware that her parents were about to be taken away in handcuffs. What happens to her? I asked. If they're arrested? She'd be placed into protective custody. Officer Smith replied gently, until a family member can claim her. I closed my eyes. The idea of her waking up alone frightened. Being taken by strangers to some agency building. It shattered me. She's 10 years old, I said. She just saved my life. And now she'd lose her parents too? The officer leaned back, watching me carefully. What would you like us to do, Mr. Miller? I sat in silence. This was it, the moment. The one where I had to decide what justice looked like. And what love meant when it hurt the most. Keep them confined to their cabin, I said finally. For the rest of the trip, no public spaces, no interaction. The officer raised his eyebrows. Sir, with respect, this was attempted murder. I know, I replied. And if I press charges, Megan loses everything. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. I'll speak with the captain. As I left the office, I looked back one last time. I could still hear Kevin's voice. This is all lies. That old man is manipulating everyone. But no one answered him. And that silence said everything. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows in my suite. Outside, the Caribbean sparkled like a postcard. A new day, a quiet ship. 4. The first time in a long while, I felt ... light. I found Megan at the breakfast buffet in the kids' lounge. She was laughing with 2 other girls, holding a plate piled high with fruit and tiny pastries. When she saw me, she dropped everything and ran straight into my arms. Grandpa. I lifted her into a hug and held on a little longer than usual. She didn't know all the details. Not yet, but she knew enough, and she knew I was still here. Can we go snorkeling today? She asked, eyes wide. The activity director said there's parrotfish and coral reefs. Absolutely, I said. Just you and me today, all day. She smiled so wide it hurt my heart in the best way. What about Mom and Dad? I knelt down to her level and brushed a strand of hair from her face. They're resting in their cabin for a few days, I said gently. Doctor's orders. She nodded slowly, sensing the truth between the lines. But she didn't press because children know when not to ask. That day, we snorkeled together in waters so clear we could see every colorful fish, every shell, every shimmer of sunlight on the sand below. We laughed. We splashed. We played like time didn't exist. And for the first time, I saw the real Megan. A girl free from tension, free from walking on eggshells. Just a child. Just joy. That night, we dressed. Up for dinner again. She wore her sundress. I wore my best linen shirt. She reached for my hand as we walked through the quiet halls of the ship. The dining room felt warmer this time, less like a scene I was performing in, and more like a memory being created. We talked about her favorite books, about her dreams, about how she wanted to be an explorer, or maybe a marine biologist, or maybe someone who runs a bookstore on an island. I listened, really listened, and I realized something. This was the real reason I was still here, not because I had outsmarted evil, but because I had someone good to live for. Each of the next 3 days felt like a gift. We swam. We played board games. We visited the ship's library and read by the window while waves rolled past. We watched the sunset every night, side by side. And every time she looked up at me and smiled, I knew I had made the right choice. As for Kevin and Tracy, they stayed. Locked away, food delivered by staff, windows closed. I passed by their cabin once and caught a glimpse through the small portal. Kevin was pacing. Tracy stared blankly at her phone. They looked trapped, not just by the ship, but by the lives they had built on lies. And I I was finally free. On our final morning, Manhattan appeared on the horizon like a painting from memory. Gray buildings. Slow fog. The sound of tugboats and seagulls cutting through the early light. Megan and I stood on the upper deck, wrapped in sweatshirts, the wind tugging at her hair. She leaned into my side without saying a word. We watched the sun rise together, just as we had watched it set every night before. "Grandpa," she whispered, "this was the best vacation ever." I smiled, my eyes stinging with the weight of everything she didn't say. "For me too, sweetheart. For me too." The whistle in. My pocket felt heavier than usual. It had saved my life, but it also reminded me how close we came to losing everything. Now, the danger was gone, but the scar it left? That would take time to fade. We returned to the cabin and began packing. Her tiny suitcase was full of seashells, brochures, a dried flower from the formal dinner table. Mine held something different. A letter. The one I wrote to her before that night on the deck. I left it sealed and kept it tucked away, not as a goodbye, but as a reminder. Downstairs, passengers began gathering for departure. The ship's crew moved with quiet efficiency. Then I saw them. Kevin and Tracy, flanked by 2 security officers. They were being led toward a separate exit. No handcuffs. No public scene. Just silence. Kevin didn't look at me. Tracy did. Her expression wasn't anger anymore. It was something closer to regret. But regret isn't the same as apology, and I wasn't looking for one. I turned away because Megan was calling for me. "Grandpa, can we sit by the window while we wait?" "Of course," I said. "Anywhere you want." We found 2 chairs near the glass. Outside, I watched the docks draw closer. People returning to real life. To jobs, to traffic, to routines. But I was returning to something else. To purpose. To a new version of myself. One that didn't bend out of guilt. One that didn't carry everyone else's weight alone. Megan reached for my hand. Her little fingers curled into mine, and I realized something. Simple but powerful. I didn't lose my family. I found it right here. In this moment, in this child, in this second chance. Back at home, the silence was different. It wasn't empty anymore. It was peaceful. I walked through the front door and stood there for a long moment. The same house, the same furniture, but everything had changed. I had changed. I placed the suitcase on the floor and walked into this kitchen. The coffee pot sat in its usual spot. Sunlight streamed through the same window. Same ceramic mug on the counter, but I wasn't the same man who had stood there before that phone call. That version of me was tired. Afraid of conflict, afraid of disappointing people I loved, afraid of being alone. But not anymore. I poured the coffee, slowly, breathing in the quiet, letting it fill me with something steady, something new. I didn't feel bitter. I didn't feel angry. I felt ready. Megan would be visiting next weekend. She had already asked me if we could build a bookshelf for her room. She wanted to keep her crew's treasures in it, and I said yes, without hesitation, without guilt. Because now, I was no longer trying to hold everything together with duct tape and hope. Now, I was building something real. I sat at the dining room table with my notebook. I didn't write a journal entry. I wrote a letter to myself. A letter that began with one sentence. You survived because you stopped being afraid to lose people who didn't love you the way you deserved. It hit me like truth often does, quietly, but deeply. Kevin had made his choice. So had Tracy. And so had I. I chose Megan. I chose myself. I chose peace. That afternoon, I sat on the porch, watching the leaves move in the breeze, and I thought, maybe I could start a garden, not to stay busy, but to stay alive, not to keep growing. I used to think I was too old for new beginnings, but now I know the truth. Sometimes survival gives you something better than comfort. It gives you clarity. We returned to the city with only 2 suitcases, but what we carried couldn't fit in bags. Megan held my hand as we stepped off the ship. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. Sometimes love is quiet. Sometimes it's just presence. A few steps behind us, 2 security officers escorted Kevin and Tracy toward a side gate. They were leaving the ship too, but not the same way. I didn't look back, and I didn't let Megan look either, because that chapter was done. We walked together to the parking lot where my neighbor waited to pick us up. Megan smiled when she saw her booster seat in the back. I guess we're really home now, she said softly. Yes, sweetheart, I said. We are. As we pulled away, the ship disappeared in the rearview mirror, but its lessons stayed with me. Back at the house, Megan ran to the backyard like she belonged there. She did. She explored every corner like it was her personal kingdom. Later that night, she helped me set the table. Nothing fancy, just soup and toast. But when we sat to eat, she looked at me and said, "Grandpa, I feel safe here." And I had to turn my face just a little so she wouldn't see my eyes fill. "I feel safe too," I whispered. That night, I tucked her into the guest bed and kissed her forehead. "Can I stay forever?" she asked sleepily. "You can stay as long as you need to," I said, because I didn't know what the future held. Courts, custody, counseling, all those things were still coming. But right now, tonight, this moment, it was peace. After she fell asleep, I sat alone in the living room. The house was quiet again. But this time, it didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. I walked to the cabinet where I had hidden the whistle. I held it one last time. Then I placed it in a small wooden box beside the photo of Megan from last Christmas. Not as a warning, but as a reminder that when it mattered most, she saved me. And I stood up. Not for revenge, not for pride, but for love. Real love. The kind that protects without punishment. The kind that forgives without forgetting. The kind that stays. Others. Leave you with the truth you carry for the rest of your life. Walter's story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about protection, about courage, and about choosing love. Even when love has been twisted, tested, and nearly destroyed, he didn't fight back with fists or rage. He fought back with wisdom, with clarity, with the quiet power of someone who finally saw the truth and refused to keep living a lie. Protected the one person who mattered most. And in doing so, he found himself. Maybe you've been there too. Maybe you've given until it hurt, trusted until it broke you, stayed quiet because you thought that's what love was. But here's the truth. Real love sets boundaries. Real love protects. And sometimes, real love means walking away from people who keep choosing to hurt you, even if they share your blood. Walter didn't win by destroying his enemies. He won by saving what was worth saving and letting go of what WSN single quotes T. May we all be brave enough to do the same. Some stories leave you speechless. Others leave you with a truth you carry for the rest of your life. Walter's story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about protection. About courage. And about choosing love. Even when love has been twisted, tested, and nearly destroyed, he didn't fight back with fists or rage. He fought back with wisdom, with clarity, with the quiet power of someone who finally saw the truth and refused to keep living a lie. Protected the one person who mattered most. And in doing so, he found himself. Maybe you've been there too. Maybe you've given until it hurt, trusted until it broke you, stayed quiet because you thought that's what love was. But here's the truth. Real love sets boundaries. Real love protects. And sometimes, real love means walking away from people who keep choosing to hurt you, even if they share your blood. Walter didn't win by destroying his enemies. He won by saving what was worth saving and letting go of what W.A. said single quotes T. May we all be brave enough to do the same. And if this story spoke to your heart, don't leave without letting us know in the comments. Your words might help someone else who's going through something similar. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to join us. Because here we tell stories that heal, stories that protect, stories that remind you you're not alone. Thank you for being here. See you in the next story.